Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the Monday Night Raw review. And tonight's Raw was from the Allstate Arena in Chicago. Of course, WWE was in Chicago for Survivor Series weekend, and this was the last night that they would be in Chicago for the weekend for the Survivor Series weekend. But this was the Fallout. This was the Monday Night Raw Fallout show from Survivor Series. And if you guys haven't checked out my previous video, my Survivor Series review, it is up. If you haven't checked out my review of it, definitely go check it out. And as I say, tonight's Raw, another week, another garbage, shitty show Monday Night Raw was tonight. I mean, there was some stuff that I liked, but all in all, the show was garbage. The show was shitty. So let's get on with the Monday Night Raw review. So Monday Night Raw opened up tonight with some of the Raw roster surrounding the ring, because we had the Seth Rollins town hall meeting, as they were calling it. So Seth Rollins was in the ring. Fans were chanting CM Punk, and Seth Rollins ends up reacting to that, saying, "You know, I tried to call him out, but CM Punk just wants to sit behind the desk in Los Angeles and talk about change." You know, that's what Rollins had to say. So Seth says he's tried to get Punk. He tried to get CM Punk on Monday Night Raw. So Seth goes on to talk about how this is about all of us tonight. Meaning the Raw roster. So we have fans, you know, chanting NXT. We heard the fans chant NXT. Seth Rollins ends up saying that NXT wiped the floor with Raw at Survivor Series, and the fans really enjoyed that. When he said that. So Seth goes on about how he's always been a fan of Monday Night Raw. He says this is going to be harsh, but it has to be said. So Seth Rollins ends up addressing the roster at ringside and says to the roster, he ends up telling the Raw roster that they all sucked last night. So fans ended up booing. Fans were chanting, "You suck," to Seth Rollins. So Rollins ends up saying that he's trying to right the ship here, and that they all did bad last night. So Rollins ends up going on about how they need to take how the Raw roster needs to take the top spot back and make Raw the A show again, which, you know, it's WWE's flagship show, but to me the A show is NXT. Monday Night Raw is basically the D show or the F show. It's not the A show, because of how shitty the Monday Night Raw has been. So it's not the A show. I would say it's the F show. So Seth Rollins ends up asking fans to give him just a minute. Seth ended up believing in Raw, which is why he called the roster out. So Seth Rollins was like, if anyone on the roster wants to speak up. So he ends up, calling Randy Orton, asking him if Orton wants to speak up. Rollins ends up saying that Orton was on his team last night and that he was the weak link. And so we saw Orton end up staring at Seth. Seth ends up asking if he has anything to say, if Orton has anything to say. And Orton ended up just walking away, ends up going to the back, didn't say anything. So Seth Rollins ended up talking trash as, Randy Orton ended up heading up the ramp. And then Rollins ends up going to Charlotte next. And Rollins ends up saying that Charlotte is supposed to be a leader of the women's division. But she wasn't even the last one standing for the team. So Seth was saying, "Oh, you call yourself a Flair?" And so Charlotte ends up also walking off to the back. Then Rollins turns to AOP, the Authors of Pain. He ends up saying to the both of them, to Akira Razor, that they both weren't even at Survivor Series. He ends up telling them maybe they should have been at Survivor Series because they've been talking about violence for weeks. And Seth Rollins said to them, Team Raw could have used them, could have used AOP. So Akam and Razor end up walking off as well. Then Seth ended up addressing Rey Mysterio. He ended up blasting Mysterio for not being able to beat Brock Lesnar. Seth ended up calling, Rey's son Dominic a stupid kid. Rey ended up walking off as well. Fans were chanting asshole at Seth Rollins. And we just had the rest of the Raw locker room walk to the back. They all turned their backs on Seth Rollins. But we only saw that Kevin Owens was the only one left standing. Kevin Owens was standing on the ring apron. He was staring Seth Rollins down. So Seth goes on to mention that Kevin Owens being on Team NXT now. So Seth ended up inviting Kevin Owens into the ring to speak. Seth goes on about how much, he loves Raw and lives it, and he wants to make it better. Yeah, Seth, I don't know how you're going to make Monday Night Raw better when every week it's a shit show with this show. So Seth Rollins ends up calling Kevin Owens a lazy piece of crap. It says he just shows up. So Seth Rollins says that Kevin Owens will never be him. Will never be Seth Rollins. So Seth Rollins ends up saying that he didn't mean it that way, but he's coming from a good place. He ends up going on to say that this is the right thing to do. Kevin Owens doesn't say anything. He ends up kicking Seth Rollins in the gut and ends up delivering a stunner to Seth Rollins. So Kevin Owens ends up getting out of the ring. His music ends up hitting. And pretty much that's basically how the segment ended. But we're getting little slow burn It's a slow burn to WWE turning Seth Rollins heel. It's just a slow burn. Not fully there yet, but we're gonna start building and building until Seth Rollins is a heel. So I wouldn't call this a heel turn this fast. It's a slow burn. But I really enjoyed this segment, and I'm enjoying so far the slow burn that they're giving Seth Rollins for him turning heel, because Seth Rollins desperately needs a heel turn. He's getting stale as a babyface, so he needs a heel turn badly, and WWE is doing it right now, just with a slow burn. It's not fully there yet, but it's going to get there. So, but I really enjoyed this segment with Seth Rollins. Wasn't bad. Then, when Raw came back from the commercial, Seth Rollins was backstage. He looked upset. Charlie Caruso ended up interviewing him and says, it didn't look like things went how, he planned. Seth Rollins says he was just trying to get Raw back on the same page. And Seth ended up proposing a match against Kevin Owens tonight. So then, Seth Rollins ended up walking off. But that match was the main event tonight, with Seth Rollins versus Kevin Owens. It was a little interview with Seth Rollins. Then we had Bobby Lashley versus Titus O'Neil. Wow, does this scream a important match to watch? No. And when I saw Bobby Lashley's music kit, I'm like, oh my god, here we go. We're gonna get another fucking segment with this garbage, shitty storyline that should fucking end. Thankfully, we did not get that. So Bobby Lashley came out with Lana, and pretty much basically, this was just a short match. The match ended in disqualification because Rusev came out, and apparently Rusev had a restraining order in the city of Chicago, where he wasn't able to step 90 feet in front of Bobby Lashley and Lana. So that didn't stop Rusev from being kicked out of the arena because of that restraining order. Rusev came down to the ring, beat down on Bobby Lashley. Lashley and Rusev ended up brawling on the floor. Lana was screaming at Rusev, which she was fucking annoying with the screaming. It was making my ears, like, oh my god. It was ear shattering with Lana screaming that loudly because it was terrible. It was fucking terrible. So Rusev gets the upper hand, ends up sending Lashley into the barricade, and fans were chanting Rusev Day. Lashley and Rusev ended up brawling up the ramp. Lashley had control, but Rusev ended up dropping him on the ramp. Ended up dropping Lashley on the ramp. Fans were popping for Rusev. And then we saw Rusev end up sending Lashley into the LED board on the stage. And they went face first into the announce table. Rusev sent Lashley face first into the announce table. Sorry about that, but I was saying, Rusev ended up sending Lashley into the announce table. Rusev ended up taking, the top off of the announce table, ended up clearing it. Lana continuing with the ear-shattering yelling. And Rusev ended up putting Bobby Lashley on the table. And he ends up turning to Lana, telling her, this is not about her. So then we had police officers came out and pulled Rusev off of Bobby Lashley. The officers ended up placing Rusev in handcuffs. And Lana still screaming, ear-shattering screaming, with her telling that Rusev is breaking the law. And then we had Rusev end up knocking Lashley from the stage. And Lashley fell back onto the platform below. Rusev, while still in handcuffs, then kicked over a tall structure, which was part of the set, and it landed on Bobby Lashley. Lana still screaming, and Rusev ended up smiling, and he was like being psychotic. And so we saw the officers take Rusev to the back, and that was how segment ended, and Raw went to commercial. But I really thought this was very meh, in my opinion. When is they should just have the match and then end this fucking storyline. I'm tired of seeing this storyline between Bobby Lashley, Lana, and Rusev, and I'm sure a lot of you are tired of it as well, because this storyline is hated, universally hated by fans. Let's just hope they end the storyline after TLC, after tables, ladders, and chairs. But this is WWE. They're probably going to stretch it out after TLC. Who knows? Then we had Authors of Pain versus Zack Ryder and Curt Hawkins. Squash match. AOP just dominated on Zack Ryder and Curt Hawkins in this match. AOP won the match with a super collider. That was that. AOP won. Moving on. We had Andrade Cien Almas versus Akira Tozawa. So this match, was very meh in my opinion. Andrade, just dominating through the match. Akira Tozawa was pretty decent here, but Andrade ended up winning the match. Hammerlock DDT on Akira Tozawa. There you go. Andrade Cien Almas ends up winning the match. Very meh match, in my opinion. Then we had Aleister Black. Aleister Black was backstage. He was addressing how Buddy Murphy knocked on his door for a fight a year ago. So Aleister says, Buddy Murphy has a match, so he's coming to collect. He says, Buddy Murphy came to pick a fight with Aleister Black tonight, just by coming to the arena. That's what Aleister Black said. So that was basically what Aleister Black had to say. Then we had Buddy Murphy versus Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy ended up returning tonight on Monday Night Raw. It was cool to see him. You know, he's been out of action for a while, but it was cool to see Matt Hardy again. But Buddy Murphy versus Matt Hardy, this was a decent match. You know, back and forth between the both of them. I said, cool seeing Matt Hardy in the match. You know, you could tell that at some points Matt Hardy had a little ring rust because he hasn't been in the ring for months. But in the end, Buddy Murphy ended up getting the win. Ended up hitting a knee to Matt Hardy's face. Buddy Murphy ended up hitting plenty of knee shots to Matt Hardy's face. He ended up hitting Matt Hardy with 3 knee shots to the face. By the third one, that was when Buddy Murphy ended up picking up the win. So Buddy Murphy ends up winning the match by defeating Matt Hardy. Sad, this is not how Matt Hardy should have, came back. Sorry about that, but I was saying this was not how Matt Hardy should have came back. With Buddy Murphy just, hitting, knees to his face. So, but like I said, it was cool seeing Matt Hardy return, but not a good match for him to come back and return in losing the match on his return after being out for months. So post match, we had Buddy Murphy. He got on the mic. He ended up calling out Aleister Black. He was taunting Aleister Black. Aleister Black ends up coming out. He charges to the ring. Aleister and Buddy Murphy stare at each other. Buddy Murphy ends up hitting Aleister first, but Aleister Black ends up fighting back to Buddy Murphy. Aleister Black takes Buddy Murphy out with strikes and a knee to knock Buddy Murphy out of the ring. And we saw Aleister Black watch as Buddy Murphy ended up stumbling at ringside. The fans were behind Aleister Black. They were chanting for him. And Buddy Murphy looked like he was going to go back into the ring and do something to Aleister Black. But he didn't do anything. So looks like we're going to be seeing Aleister Black versus Buddy Murphy. Maybe it'll happen next week on Monday Night Raw. But we'll have to wait to see. But I know it's possibly going to happen next week. So then we had Charlie Caruso. She was interviewing Charlotte. And she ends up talking about her history, Charlotte's history with Asuka, and what happened between them at Survivor Series. Charlotte says she is ready to make Asuka pay for using the green mist from last night. And she's going to pay, and Asuka's going to pay for that tonight. We had that little interview with Charlotte. Then it was supposed to be AJ Styles versus Humberto Carrillo for the United States Championship. The United States Championship was going to be on the line. But as soon as Humberto Carrillo came out, he was attacked on the ramp by Gallows and Anderson. They both end up beating down on Humberto at ringside. And, they also beating him up on the apron. Styles was watching. And they hit Humberto over the ring steps with the Magic Killer. And after that, Gallows and Anderson joined Styles in the ring. Fans were booing them. Ricochet ends up coming down to check on Humberto. Referees were there at ringside. So Styles ends up taking the mic, starts talking crap at Humberto, and Styles says he has words for Ricochet. And Ricochet ends up taking the mic and asks if this is what the great AJ Styles has become. So Ricochet then challenges Styles. Styles says he signed a contract to defend against Humberto, not Ricochet. And, he says Humberto just got carried out. So Styles ends up denying Ricochet. Out came Randy Orton. Orton comes out. Orton ends up saying Humberto can't compete, but he can. He says, the people of Chicago will love to see me RKO Styles' ass through the mat. So Orton ended up challenging AJ Styles to put the United States Championship on the line. And we heard the fans, they were chanting RKO. And Styles ends up reminding Randy Orton the last time they faced. It was at WrestleMania. And he won. So Styles says he has nothing to prove against two guys he's already defeated. And then out came Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre ended up saying that he might have a solution. He knows a guy who Styles never faced. A guy who's never had a singles title shot. And McIntyre says he's tall, handsome, and has a sexy accent. So McIntyre goes on about his success at Survivor Series, including when he pinned Walter, the WWE United Kingdom champion, a guy who they built up and who is undefeated, which they made a big mistake with Walter being the first to get eliminated in the 5-on-5-on-5 Survivor Series match last night at Survivor Series. Big mistake for Walter being the first eliminated in that match. They fucked up. And the fans, the Chicago fans, were chanting bullshit at that last night. And you know what? I agree with the fans. I don't blame the fans for chanting bullshit. Because how you have Walter be the first elimination of the match when the guy is undefeated, they build him up really well, and then you have him put in the Survivor Series match just for him to be the first one eliminated. What the fuck? Oh. So McIntyre says Chicago doesn't deserve this match. But how about McIntyre versus AJ Styles for the United States Championship for the first time ever? So Styles says he's a little sore after stealing the show at Survivor Series. And then out came Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio ended up talking about how he faced Brock Lesnar last night, and that AJ Styles is just making excuses. So Rey goes on and says he's not going to let Styles cheat Chicago out of a title match. So Rey was like, oh, let's just make it me versus you, AJ Styles, for the United States Championship. And then Styles goes on about how they haven't earned anything, how these guys haven't earned anything. He turns them down because they're all just entitled. So Ricochet comes up with an idea. Ricochet goes on and says, how about we have a fatal four-way with the winner of the match challenging Styles to a match for the United States Championship. Sorry about that, but I was saying, Ricochet came up with the idea of, them having a fatal four-way match, and the winner will get to face AJ Styles for the United States Championship. So McIntyre ends up liking the idea. Styles says Ricochet's idea is dumb. And Gallows and Anderson end up disagreeing with Styles that it's a bad idea. So Styles tells them to go ahead and beat the crap out of each other, but he will pick the bones. So that was how the segment ended, but very, very meh segment with the guys. They're just bickering back and forth. Let me have a shot at Styles for the United States Championship. Let me have a shot at Styles for the United States Championship. Very meh, in my opinion. Then we have Rey Mysterio versus Randy Orton, Ricochet, and Drew McIntyre. This was the Fatal 4-Way, which, to me, the match itself, it was a decent Fatal 4-Way. It was back and forth between all four of these guys. Rey Mysterio ended up coming off, going into this match after, after Brock Lesnar ended up defeating him last night in that no-holds-barred match for the title for the WWE Championship. Ricochet, very entertaining in this match as well. But Mysterio ended up winning the match with a roll-up. I think he ended up rolling up Ricochet. So Rey Mysterio ended up winning the match. He gets a shot at AJ Styles for the United States Championship. Overall, decent Fatal 4-Way match. And what I really liked about this was the next match. It was Rey Mysterio versus AJ Styles for the United States Championship. What I really liked about this is I'm happy that Rey Mysterio won the Fatal 4-Way because this was a dream match. This was a dream match between Mysterio and Styles. These two, put on a decent match here for, with the United States Championship on the line. They gave it all they got in this match. There was a point in the match where Carl Anderson ended up, holding on to Mysterio's leg. The referee ended up seeing it. So the ref ended up throwing Carl Anderson and Gallows out of ringside. So it was just one-on-one with Mysterio and Styles. There was a point in the match where Rey Mysterio ended up hitting the 619 to Styles. The 619 connected. Styles went back, took out the referee. The referee was down. And that gave the advantage of Gallows and Anderson coming back out, trying to beat down on Mysterio. which they did. Randy Orton came out, ended up making the save, ended up taking out Gallows and Anderson. And that led to Rey Mysterio hitting another 619 to AJ Styles. And, Rey Mysterio went for the frog splash. No, actually, Rey did the 619 for a second time. Randy Orton was there, and Randy Orton delivered the RKO to Styles. Then Rey Mysterio went to the top, ended up hitting the frog splash. Rey ended up hitting AJ Styles. There you go. Rey Mysterio wins the match, and Rey Mysterio is the new United States champion, which is awesome. But I can see why WWE did this is because they don't want Rey Mysterio, going elsewhere. They don't want him going to AEW because, Rey Mysterio's contract is going to be up soon, and WWE wants Rey to stay, and that's why they put the United States Championship around him. Sorry about that again, guys. Getting interrupted. Cat's going in and out. But like I said, the only reason why they put the title on Mysterio is because his contract is coming up, and WWE doesn't want Rey Mysterio to go to AEW or elsewhere. That is the reason why they put the United States Championship around Rey Mysterio. But Rey's son Dominic came out celebrating with his father. It was a pretty, it was a fun moment, with Rey Mysterio holding the United States Championship. All in all, it was a decent match. Then we had Charlie Caruso. She was interviewing Kevin Owens. Caruso goes to speak, but Kevin Owens ends up asking if he can handle this interview by himself. So Charlie Caruso ends up handing Kevin Owens the mic. She ends up leaving. Kevin Owens ended up starting off with harsh words for Seth Rollins. Kevin Owens goes on and says about how he's never tried to be something he's not in WWE, even when people tried to force him to, because he knows who he is, will always be, and he says that's fine. Kevin Owens ended up saying that Seth Rollins always tried to be what he thinks WWE needs him to be. So he ends up saying that Seth Rollins just turned himself into an insufferable prick. So Kevin Owens goes on and says the next stunner coming from him to Seth Rollins will turn Monday Night Rollins into the Kevin Owens show. So pretty decent interview with Kevin Owens. Really liked the style and what he had to say. Always like when Kevin Owens has the mic in his hand, and he doesn't need anybody interviewing him. He could do this. He could do an interview with just him, only, and he cuts a good promo on the mic. And then we had Asuka versus Charlotte Flair. We've seen this many times before. Nothing new. It was a boring match, in my opinion. Didn't enjoy the match whatsoever. We had Kairi Sane down there. One point, Charlotte ended up chasing Kairi into the crowd. So it was just Asuka and Charlotte, just one-on-one. But Asuka ended up getting the win. Once again, just like last night, at Survivor Series, we saw Asuka end up spraying Charlotte with the green mist. So Asuka got the win, pinned Charlotte. There you go. Asuka got the win. But nothing new here with Asuka and Charlotte. We've seen them go at it before. Nothing great, nothing perfect. To me, it was a boring match. Then we had another squash match. Erick Rowan versus this local by the name of Kyle Roberts. Of course, Erick Rowan came out with the cage, with the blanket or cloth over the cage. Still know what it is that Erick Rowan is carrying in that cage. But Erick Rowan got the win. Iron Claw on Kyle Roberts. Erick Rowan wins. Moving on. We saw the OC backstage. Gallows, Anderson, Styles. Sarah Schreiber ends up asking AJ Styles for comments on him losing the United States Championship. And AJ Styles doesn't say anything. He had a loss of words. So Styles end up speaking, and he just says Randy Orton's name. And that was that. So we're possibly going to be seeing AJ Styles versus Randy Orton. Maybe next week on Monday Night Raw. So I expect that next week. So then we had a recap of what happened earlier with Rusev and Bobby Lashley. And the announcers, Vic Joseph and Jerry the King Lawler, D.L. Madden, still, selling the effects of when Brock Lesnar ended up taking him out, a few weeks ago. So the announcers end up talking about how Rusev was arrested and that Bobby Lashley was taken to a medical facility. And Charlie Caruso was backstage. She was interviewing Lana. Fans end up booing her, of course. Lana ends up saying that Rusev is a danger to himself and all of society, which is why she had to get multiple restraining orders. Lana ends up saying that Rusev is obsessed with her. She ended up saying that tonight's actions are proof WWE should fire him and send him back to Bulgaria. Lana ends up saying that she is handling things with the attack on Bobby Lashley. Lana ends up saying that despite the incident, she will be okay. So she ends up walking off. But who gives a shit? I didn't give a shit about this. Who cares? Main event. Kevin Owens versus Seth Rollins. This was a decent match between the both of them. And, this could have been, more decent, but the match ended in a disqualification because the Authors of Pain, AOP, came down. They ended up being down on Kevin Owens. So because of that, Kevin Owens won the match by disqualification. So, post-match, AOP They end up beating down on Kevin Owens. They end up continuing being down on Kevin Owens. We had fans in the crowd chanting bullshit. So Seth Rollins ends up watching as AOP end up destroying Kevin Owens in the corner. AOP then end up launching Kevin Owens into the ring post quite a few times. Fans were still unhappy. They were booing. AOP ended up leaving Kevin Owens lay in because they ended up hitting a double knee to Kevin Owens. Seth Rollins was still down. He wasn't moving. Well, he was barely moving. AOP then approached Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins got to his feet by then. Seth ends up telling them to bring it. But, AOP just looked at each other. They ended up getting out of the ring. Fans were still booing as AOP made their way to the back. While, Seth Rollins was just watching from the ring. So Kevin Owens is slowly getting back up. Seth Rollins looks at Kevin Owens, and Seth Rollins just delivers a curb stomp to Kevin Owens. Fans were still booing as Seth Rollins was talking shit to Kevin Owens. Seth ended up laying another curb stomp to Kevin Owens while, he was talking shit. Then Monday Night Raw ended with Seth Rollins just still talking more, shit to Kevin Owens while Kevin Owens was just laid out. And that's how Monday Night Raw ended. The shit show. Garbage show. And so that was Monday Night Raw tonight. Anyways, that's it for my Monday Night Raw review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up. Comment, subscribe. If you guys haven't checked out my Survivor Series review, which was a previous video, definitely go check it out. Also check out my movie review of A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. If you haven't checked that one out, I have my Friday Night SmackDown review, the AEW review from last week, Ford vs. Ferrari. I did a movie review of that. If you haven't checked out my review of that, definitely do. So, that's it for the video, and until next video, I'll see you all later.